Hi everyone, welcome to the Art and the Easel. We're already chuckling, lol. Welcome to our second episode, and it's our first episode with a guest, which is so fun. There's gonna be a lot of laughing, I could assume, with this episode. We have Ysabel Turner, who is a really close friend of mine. We've known each other for a long time now. And she's a artist. She creates all sorts of art, I would say. Kind of just pours into whatever you feel like making, I would say. And we'll just dive into some questions, get to know you better, the work that you make, and just things that have been top of mind that we want to, engage in a conversation and see our thoughts about it. But of course, we start off always with a meditation. A mindful moment, I think, is last time what we called it, because we did it for 20 seconds or something.
Yeah.
And I'll have Aaron kick it off with a little meditation.
Okay. What's up, everyone? So this meditation came to me this morning and a little bit maybe 2 weeks ago. It's a little different. It's like kind of talking meditation, which is unique for me. But the reason why I started doing this was because I had trouble sometimes when I'm meditating of I know you're not supposed to turn off your thoughts necessarily. You're supposed to just kind of accept all your thoughts and just kind of examine them. But recently I'm like, okay, what if I give myself some self-affirmations while I'm meditating? So this one is kind of called the You're Okay meditation. So basically you just close your eyes, you breathe in through your nose, and then as you're breathing out, you just say, "You're okay," in a whisper. And you just continue to do that over and over again. You're okay. And then you breathe in one more time. And then this time you say, "You've always been okay." You've always been okay. And then I've noticed that even if you don't believe that outside of that 30 seconds or 5 minutes or 10 minutes that you've did that, at least for those 10 seconds, you believe that. So
That's really cool.
Yeah. And I always feel okay afterwards because we are.
It's like a words of affirmation meditation. Yeah. So. But you don't repeat it every time.
Yeah, I do. So for the longer, so this is the shortened version, but typically I'll do that for 5 to 10 minutes straight.
Oh, nice.
Even if I'm not feeling okay before, I'm just okay, for these 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to tell myself I'm okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And then afterwards, you can do whatever you want, but for this 5 to 10 minutes, I'm okay.
You're okay for those 5 minutes. After that, you're not okay. You're like, well.
And then it feels good. So, yeah.
Nice.
Hopefully that helped everyone.
Yeah, I really like that, actually.
Yeah, so let's get started. Ysabel, welcome. Thank you for being our first guest.
Thank you for coming.
Yes.
Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Yes. So, do you want to give us a brief snapshot to kind of who you are and what type of art you do create first?
Sure. So I'm Ysabel. I went to school for photography, so I'm a photographer. Currently now I'm not doing any photography. I work for a film company, so I'm in the film world and I do a lot of archival research. And then on the weekends, I'm also doing pottery now, which is something I've picked up recently, which I really love. And I think it's kind of for me at least at this moment, it's just a mindless, just hand creating activity that I like to do. So I'm definitely a beginner, but I definitely am slowly getting better, which is nice to see my progress. And it's just a nice art thing I can do on the side that has nothing to do with work and nothing to do with photography.
Yeah. Have you always been a creative person, even as a young child? And how is that transition as you've gotten older in your life? Each level or version of yourself, has it always been an artistic person? Have you always been an artistic person?
Yeah, I'd say I think I have. I used to love art as a kid. I did a lot of art camps. I feel like I did a lot of art activities with friends and just a lot of art programs I would do in the summertime. And I think that definitely manifested into college and wanting to study art. And I pretty much only applied to art school for schools.
Wow.
And photography has been something that I've really loved since I was 12. 12 was when I got my first camera, and then I really just kind of kicked it off from there, and I did a lot of programs. I started off with digital, and then I moved to film, and then it just manifested into what I did at Parsons, the new school, which is where I went to college, and then from there, I think it also manifested into my work now, which is me doing a lot of archival research, and I love looking at images.
Wow. And so as a 12-year-old, when you get your first camera, like what kind of things were you taking pictures of? Like what was like the inspiration then? I'm curious.
So I was on vacation at the time in Spain, and I took a lot of pictures of just like the surrounding buildings, architecture. I had a close friend who was also on the trip, so she was probably like my first muse, I'd say, of like a model that I used.
Wow.
So I took some portraits of her. Not so much my family. I think it was mostly her, and then just like the buildings, architecture in Spain, which of course is like super beautiful. So
yeah.
those are the main.
And as you're doing that, are you just like, this is what I want to do? And like as a 12-year-old, you like, I just feel it. Like this is my calling. This is like what I'm here for.
Yeah, I think my family was really encouraging, and they were just like, these are good. So I think it just kept to make me want to try and do programs outside of just that first trip of using a camera. I think like my parents definitely inspired me to just keep on going with it and getting better and taking classes and learning more about how to use cameras.
Yeah. And as you like now, like as you're doing photography, what's your inspiration now? I know like to start, the first question I have for you is, where does your inspiration for creation stem from? Does it stem from internal place, where it's like your spirit telling you to create a particular work of art or shoot a particular scene or create this concept? Or does it come from an external place first where you're seeing something that inspires you, then you're creating? Or are those two things one and the same?
I feel like they can definitely be one and the same. I think for me, the nice thing now about pottery is that it's so mindless for me at this moment, because I'm not like, I don't have a goal of putting this in a gallery. I don't have a goal of like doing all these other things with that work that I'm making. I think that with photography for me, I haven't done anything in a while. I'm very much a project-based artist. So for me, I have to kind of have, I think, some sort of internal question that I want to answer through my art. And I think that I do a lot of brainstorming. I definitely think like seeing external things inspire me, but I have to figure out like what's an internal question that I want to answer for myself, with like a visual art form.
Yeah.
I have a question. Because it's so interesting, the drastic change of like mediums now. Like I know with photo and video, like, and even now actually what you're doing in film is so research based. It's so like you're reading so much context, you're reading so much knowledge about so many different time periods or figures or your family history, and you incorporate that so much. And now like you're kind of exploring the side of kind of like creating, especially tactilely, like just physically, without having to do any of that, kind of letting your creative juices flow in real time, which is really cool. Yeah. What do you feel like sparked that? Because I know you love the researching and like, oh, and this time this happened, and like you love that. So like I'm so curious when it kind of went, oh, I kind of just want to go into the pottery studio, make something, not really have a goal in mind, and just let that energy flow in that way
and be mindless, like you were saying. You, like, a lot of your art has been so cerebral and logical, but now the pottery is more like, I'm just in the moment. Yes, that's a great question.
I think so. Like you said, I'm very much a research-based artist, and it's so important for me in my work, and just even at work too with the films I'm a part of. We're a historical documentary company. It's a lot of research, and we have to get things right, like factually. I think it happened after I came off a previous project, which was about the United States and the Holocaust. So it was just such a dark subject and so heavy in like the research. And I think everybody on my team could probably say that like we're super knowledgeable about the Holocaust now, and that can be a very dark thing. So I think for me, it was trying to figure out like a way to do something creative that wouldn't require me to think too much. And I think pottery has definitely given me that outlet to like build something with my hands, make mistakes, just like have like a mindless moment of just making art, but not having any expectation for it to represent anything or be something. Because I'm so much of like, I make something, but then this project has to say something way deeper for me in terms of my photography. Even with the films I'm working on, like each image we put in the film has to make sense historically. It has to add to what we're talking about. It can't just be like a random picture that like has no context. And so I think pottery definitely has just given me a chance to learn something new, just be creative and just try all sorts of different things. Like I said before, I'm very much a beginner, so I don't know anything. So it's just fun to just like not know anything and to start from scratch and not have any expectations of myself. To, I think the pressure, I think at times too, to like make these things that say something. I think it's nice to just quiet your mind and just do something that doesn't have to have all these other meanings behind it. Though there are potters who have like incredible work, and I'm sure there's like more meaning behind what they're making, but right now I'm like, if I can make this cup, like that'd be cool. But if I can't, like I can make a planter, or I can make something else. Like I can turn it into something else. It doesn't have to be my like end goal of what I thought it was going to be. It can turn into anything. I think it's been nice.
And I think me and Gina has had this conversation before, especially with pottery. Do you think art always has to have a usefulness component to it? Like, you know, like the pots are sometimes being created to plant for plants or whatever the case may be. But are you saying that you're just enjoying creating the pottery just for the sake of creating? You don't have any end goal to actually use this for anything?
Yeah, I feel like I have a lot of little pieces now that definitely probably can't be used for much.
Yeah, there's a tiny one. I remember seeing
they're like
little mini
they're like
pots.
super mini, because of course you don't think about this with pottery, or if you're a potter you probably do, but you really have to use a lot of clay to make things actually large or substantial to use in any way. If you don't use enough, it really does shrink in the kiln, and so it gets significantly smaller. So you might think you're making something that's like an 8-ounce cup, and then suddenly it shrinks to like
an espresso shot.
Yeah, depending on how much clay you were using. So I think for me, I have a lot of things that are just decorative at this point, which I kind of like, and it's just like, I think it shows my progress, which is fun to see how I like started from making really lopsided things to now something that maybe could have like a more of a decorative form. But I don't think art always has to have like a meaning or some sort of function. I think it can just be fun or something that you just want to try out and experiment with and see how it turns out. And I think, like I said, pottery has definitely been an outlet for me to just create and not think too much and not have an end goal, but just know that I want to play with colors. I want to play with shapes. I just want to see how things turn out. And maybe if I get more advanced, I kind of have like in the back of my mind already like a way of thinking that I'd like to combine my photography with pottery. I don't know what that would be yet, but I'm already kind of thinking about it. But I'm not advanced in pottery enough yet to do that. So if I get to that point, then maybe. But
I was actually gonna ask you right before you went, like, how am I gonna incorporate this with photography? Curious if you felt like it was. Did you ever struggle with your attachment to a particular medium? Because I know a lot of artists find it really hard to be like, well, I'm a photographer. Like, I make images. Like, that's what I make. That's how I think. That's how I feel satisfied and fulfilled when I express in those ways. And they feel it's really hard to transition to something else. I know a lot of mixed media artists probably don't feel that way, or maybe they do.
they might.
But like now, like hearing you say like, oh, like how would I incorporate with photography? Did you have that kind of, not to say attachment style with art mediums, but like, was it hard to be like, oh, it's okay that I don't feel inclined to take photos right now. I'm more inclined to use this other medium. Was it easier, or did you feel a little like, oh wow, okay, I'm trying a whole different medium now?
Yeah, I definitely think photography is the medium that I was most comfortable with. So I think there's that familiarity, which is nice. But I think that I also, because I'm so heavy in the research, I put a lot of pressure on myself for my work to mean something, or to like address some sort of issue or discuss some sort of topic. And I think that with pottery, the transition, I was nervous at first because am such a beginner. My mom has been doing pottery for a long time now, and she also, I feel like, considers herself a beginner, though I think she makes some great things that she's been doing for a long time. I think she was definitely encouraging and just being like, it's just like a nice outlet to just build something and not think too much, and it might be nice for you to do after work and just like do something that's just takes away some of the brain power of everything else I'm doing during the day. And I think she was right in that regard, and I'm really glad I gave it a chance and just like tried doing it, because it really has just been a way to just decompress after a long day, make something. Things break, things don't go to plan, you have to start from scratch, and I think it's a nice way to also realize that things can't be perfect and it can't always go how you imagine. And I think with like photography, I've especially like during my thesis year, it was so many iterations to make something that was quote unquote perfect, and I still feel like there's probably more I could do with my work, with my thesis and what I had done. But yeah, I think pottery has just been a nice way to just be like, it doesn't have to be perfect, it can just, you could see how things go, it could, something lopsided could turn out beautifully, and it could also have like maybe a function, maybe not, but I think it's like a nice decompressive art for me at least.
Yeah, I love that. And just like double tapping on what you said about, you mentioned it a bunch of times, but being a beginner, like I think that's so key. I saw something with Janelle Monáe recently, a video, and she was talking about how important it is to own the fact that you're a beginner, and you own it.
Interesting.
And like when you own that you're a beginner at something, that immediately takes the pressure off of it.
Right.
Because then you're like, I'm a beginner, and like it's like you don't have a delusion. And so I think that's where sometimes when people start creating art, they have a delusion that they're further advanced than where they at. And so when they have beginner like work, and they, in their head they think that they should be at an advanced level state, that battle between the two leads to frustration and leads to someone wanting to stop. But when you own that, like, no, I'm a beginner at this, that takes the pressure off of anything to like create work that looks like it should be in the Met Gala or something like that, or whatever the case. Do they have pottery at the Met Gala?
I think they do.
They do.
Okay.
There's
Okay.
one section of it.
Yeah, they have like a lot of.
Yeah, they have a lot.
I mean, the Met just has stuff from all over the world.
Over.
Yeah.
I think the second floor though is like all pottery.
I think I actually took a picture recently, because I was like, I was there not that long ago, and I was like, this glazing's kind of nice.
Oh, okay.
Like the colors of this are kind of pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody's art that was in there was a beginner at some point.
Right.
Well, yeah.
And some of the stuff in the Met, it's like,
yeah,
these people made something for a specific function that I don't think they intended for it to ever be in the Met.
Yeah, exactly. Wind it up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I do have another question. I'm gonna go to my handy dandy notebook.
Your iPhone.
Did you guys watch Blue's Clues growing up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you said that, I was like,
is that from Blue's Clues?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
See, did you watch Blue's Clues growing up?
I did watch it, but I didn't own a TV.
Do you know Steve?
did you see Steve's
Steve.
last video or something? Not that he
Okay.
passed.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
he's
I
on,
did.
His retirement
his
kind of
retirement
thing of
video.
sorts, being
Yeah.
like, all of you people in the comments were
Yeah.
like our age being like,
So
I grew up
sad.
with you,
And then
Steve.
Vanera, truly.
Yeah.
That was on for more than a decade.
Yeah.
No? Yeah.
Are they still making new episodes of SpongeBob?
No, I
Okay,
don't
no.
think so. Right? I don't think
don't
they
know.
are. I
But
don't think they are.
I'm just like
Correct
thinking
me if I'm wrong.
that show's been on for just so long too, and I'm just like
I
thinking to
know.
myself,
It's like The
When would they
Simpsons
end?
or like
Oh, yeah.
Family
Or
Guy.
Grey's
That's, like,
Anatomy.
one of the- Or Grey's Anatomy. There you go.
Well, I'm just saying that's been on for like 20 seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Oh my god, I will never stop. Season 50.
Another question I have for you. So you're an artist in so many ways, right? You have your pottery now you do your photography. You have, even the research side of what you do is like art in itself.
Mm-hmm.
But the question I have for you is, do you want to be remembered as an artist first? Like when it's all said and done, when you're like chilling at home and like you just letting the fruits of your labor, and you don't want to work, you don't want to create art anymore, you just like chilling, like a nice older lady just chilling, when you're just leaning back, just relaxing. I don't know where you'll be at, probably in New York somewhere, just chilling. But when it's all said and done, do you want to be remembered as an artist first, or do you want to be remembered as Ysabel?
I think I'd want to be remembered as Ysabel, and then I think I'd want people to remember the time and labor I took to create some of the art I've made. But I think the main thing is just like people remembering me as the person I am, and maybe remembering me based on the meaning I gave to their lives. Like, I think for me, it's more about the relationships I have and less about like, oh, the celebrity of like, oh wow, do you remember that like incredible thing this like artist did? I think it's more about like the personal. But I think if somebody knows me maybe as an artist sense and personally, then maybe the two could be interchangeable. But for some reason, I feel like remembering somebody as an artist, you only are remembering them based on the art that they did and not thinking about like, sometimes these people are not the best people. Sometimes they are great people. Sometimes they've had a lot of life struggles that have like led them to like make the art that they've made. And so I think I'd want people to remember me as Ysabel and maybe all those elements that make up who I am, and also consider like this art that's also a part of me that I've taken the time to do. If that makes sense.
Like when we think about it in the context of the art and the easel, you want to be remembered as the easel. The one that was always there, and the art was just a passing, it's passing on the canvas. And like other people's art was passing on your canvas as well, the people that you're able to help. And the easel was always there, and that's what I want to be remembered as. Yeah,
and I think there are definitely artists that I'm just like brainstorming about right now that I love, and their art is so powerful and so incredible. But then, you look up just like the struggles they went through and things that, of course, I would never know based on just like clearly they poured that into their art. But I feel like we should also think about like maybe the trials and tribulations that took them to get to these moments with their art too, not just like, wow, they were incredible artists, but just like all the pain or joys or things that came to those art.
I have a question because I think about this a lot. All those trials and tribulations that happen, that you can't receive that information based on the art. Do you wish artists were more open and vulnerable about those struggles and speak to it in the work? Like I think in particular of a really close dear family friend of mine, Donald Berge, if you want to look up his work, really good. And I was just having a conversation with him yesterday about this, and he's like, for him there's truly no need to understand that context. He's like, I feel like if you look at the art enough times and really sit with it, you'll get that from it, which I don't agree with, but I'm curious from you, like, one, do you feel like the artist makes that background context visible in the art? And if they don't, do you wish that more artists did do that? Because I do find that a lot of us struggle with like putting that forward, and that's when the artist wants to separate themselves and their personhood from the art execution of what they're trying to get that message out there.
And then also adding on to that, like sometimes we don't hear that story until that artist has passed away. Like that's always a frustrating part when like these great artists die. We don't hear the trials and tribulations. Like first person that comes to my head is Chadwick. Unfortunately, Chadwick Boseman. And we didn't hear the struggle of what he was going into until he passed away. And it's like, oh, he was presenting his art, but we didn't know what he was going through. And there's so many artists you don't hear about the trials and tribulations after they're gone. So just curious.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes you do see it through the work, and then I think sometimes you don't see it through the work. I feel like I might contradict myself now. I'm like trying to think about it a bit more critically. I think sometimes I do want to see it, and then sometimes I feel like, I don't know, like maybe if we knew what Chadwick was going through, like we might have seen him differently as an actor, but like what he was giving people through his films was so much joy, and maybe that would have taken away that joy if we had known like this is what's happening on the backside. So I think I don't know. I think I'm curious. I've never actually seen most of Don's work, so I'd be interested to see like what he makes and how like he feels like he puts his emotions into it. But I feel like also some people just use art as just like a therapeutic way to just get some of those I'm going to say demons, but like other things, like all these emotions out. But maybe it doesn't always have to be that. Like I feel like for me, like with the pottery, it really is mindless and just like a way for me to just decompress after a day, which, well, I guess that's therapeutic. But just not think about what I'm doing and just really relax about it. And I don't feel like I'm putting, like who I am in that work.
Yeah.
But maybe I am in some way.
Because it's
Maybe,
not
like,
always
parts of yourself.
Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
not necessary
Right,
sometimes, and it's
right.
like
I think
sometimes
maybe
we're creating art for ourselves, and sometimes we're creating art for someone else,
Right.
and that's okay. And I think when we are creating from a place where we're doing it like to help someone or to heal someone, that's when it's important to put the trials and tribulations in
Yeah.
there. But if we're creating art to bring joy or whatever, we don't want to like show our pain behind it. Because to your mentor's like point, if we know the pain, and to your point, we may be just looking at the pain,
Right.
and not the art.
Right.
We may get sad like looking at this
Yeah.
piece of art because we're like, dang, this person was like going through it when he created this, and all I think about is that. I don't think about the art. But then
Right.
also the beauty of it is I can see that person was in pain and created something beautiful, and then
Right.
I'm like,
Yeah.
yo, I can be in pain and still be beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's
And
so many
that's-
contradictions
I know.
to it.
Yeah, that's the thing too. I think you can sometimes
Yeah.
relate to those people. That art really speaks to you because you know what this person has been through.
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of goes to the prompt that I want you to talk about that we discussed. The one from the book about the tree?
Oh yeah. Well, it wasn't about the tree, but it was about nature in general.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay.
It mentioned trees.
Okay. So it was about kind of your environment and how you kind of the way you react to like nature, to animals, to humans could differ so much.
We're judgmental of art because we know it's typically made by another human being. And I think that's where it comes into place. I think like what you're saying with like nature and animals and all these other elements of people being more forgiving, whereas like with art, I think we're just quick to be like, oh, like my 2-year-old could have made that, like this is just some sort of splatter painting, not taking into account like the person who did that was potentially like the originator of splatter paint, or who like really gave it some sort of name or some sort of notoriety. So I think it's the human part of it. And I was just thinking to myself, like maybe if it was like an AI created like art thing, we'd be like, oh, interesting, like made
Yeah,
by a
true.
robot or
Yeah.
something.
Like I want to know more.
Yeah.
Like you're all of a sudden so fascinated.
Or if like a dog created like a piece of art, just
Right.
hypothetically, we would, no matter what it was, we would be so fascinated. We'd be like,
Yeah.
yo, that's crazy. And not even because of a dog, be like, oh, even like when you're saying like 2-year-olds, when like, I think it comes like a certain age. I think past 10 is when people start judging your art, but pre 10 years old, like whatever my little niece creates, no matter how it looks, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And like maybe we
Totally.
should have that same lens when we're looking at adults' work as well.
Yeah.
Like
all work,
like a
yeah.
2-year-old created it. Let's, because
Yeah.
we all are our inner child is creating this art anyway.
Right.
So why don't we
Right.
appreciate it just like we would appreciate our little niece who's 5 years old that's creating a piece of art.
Totally. That's very true.
Yeah.
I like that, yeah.
I think it's the human element to it.
Yeah. I have another question.
Yeah. Pulling up the
Handy dandy notebook.
Yeah. No.
This one's about love. Okay. Does your love for the art and creatives and creation and all the great stuff outweigh the love that you have for yourself? Or do you think they're one and the same?
I feel like for me, at least with photography, I've tried to use my art to understand and probably love myself more. I think, like I said before, I have like a lot of questions that I want to answer for myself. And I think through art, I've been able to get to the root of what I'm thinking and make it into a visual form, which has been really satisfying. So I think in a lot of ways, it's me trying to understand who I am more and also put more love into myself, into my family, into my community through the work that I make. And I think pottery, I feel like I've come to love pottery just through the fact that it's just given me this outlet to make something, and also given me a chance to realize, like, Ysabel, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to just like decompress. It's okay to not be on your phone like 24/7 and doing all this research. Like sometimes it's fine to just see how things happen and just make mistakes and just like go wild and see how things turn out and not have like a purpose. So I think art has given me the chance to just like reflect on who I am, also give me a chance to step back and maybe discover things about myself, maybe discover nothing through something, but also just tell myself that I can have these moments of quiet and not have to think too much. I can think more. I think it's a balance, but I think through art I've found that I understand myself more, and I've come to like appreciate who I am because of what I make.
I love that.
Love that.
I love that so
love
much.
that.
Like, it's like art is like, the love for your art has redirected you
Back to yourself.
to the love,
Yeah.
like to love yourself more.
Mm-hmm.
Like the love, like it's like reflecting exactly what the love that you have for yourself already is, or just making yourself like just love yourself even more. Like that's crazy. I've never even thought about it like that.
Yeah.
That's good. I
I'm
like that.
curious, what did you learn from I guess one thing that you've learned about yourself that you've grown to love more through making art? Do you have something that like comes to mind that maybe, or something you didn't realize about yourself and you're like, oh wow, didn't really see myself in that light, really didn't think I thought in those ways, or like something that you discovered where you're like, wow, if I hadn't worked on that project, oh, if I hadn't gone out that day and taken these photos, or like anything,
Made this mistake in pottery.
or make this mistake in pottery, like maybe, you know, like, is there anything that like comes to mind?
Yeah, I think through art I've learned how determined I am. And I think it's also shown me that like mistakes are fine, like mistakes happen, like you might not get the perfect thing from just like one iteration. Like sometimes it takes a lot of thinking, sometimes it might take just you stepping back and realizing like this is what it's going to be for now, and I don't need to do too many iterations.
Yeah.
I think it's just a way to have take more care of myself and give myself some grace, in the sense of like I don't always need to be perfect. And I've learned through art that it's fine to not get what you thought it would be, like have maybe the outcome I thought it would be is completely different from where I got to at the end. But I think art's given me a chance to be kinder to myself.
That's so nice. That's so beautiful.
That's so beautiful, man.
We all need that so much. I feel like our ego is always screaming,
Right,
like,
and I
oh,
think-
you messed up. How dare you mess up,
Right.
you know?
And I think just we're on our phones so much, like there's
Yeah.
so much coming at us like all the time, and there's so many like this is perfect, and like we all know now like that's not the case in a lot of situations. Like there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes, but I think just doing art has given me a chance to be kinder to myself, and just not always be stressing about like this has to be this has to be this. It's like a chance to decompress and also answer questions, think about how perhaps like I can also impact like a younger like little Ysabel somewhere out there who might be having the same questions that I'm having, and I can answer them for both of us. I don't know.
Right. And the beauty about all that is that there is a little Ysabel out there.
Yeah, there
That's
is.
crazy.
Yeah,
There's a little each one of us that's
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
that's
is.
going through exactly what we went
Yeah,
through in our
totally.
lifetime.
Yeah.
Right.
And the
Yeah.
older
Yeah.
Ysabel is probably the purpose of while we're here, the older versions of ourselves are here to
guide that
little
Right.
Ysabel within yourself and the one that's out there.
I
Wow.
love that for you. Kind of just letting things go, being kind
Yeah.
and compassionate, because you are a perfectionist.
I know.
When you said that, I thought of like the 25 reiterations of like.
I'm
with
such a
these-
perfectionist, and I think for sure pottery definitely has helped me just like take
yeah.
a step back, because I haven't done any photo stuff in a while, and I think it's because I'm such a project-based person that I want to answer all these questions for myself and like think so critically or
Yeah.
really answer something with my work. But pottery has definitely given me a chance to just be like, I could just experiment and play around and see what happens. And like I said, I think I want to somehow try to figure out a way to combine pottery and photo. I'm not quite sure yet, but I think when I do, maybe it'll be a big project. Maybe it'll just be an experiment at the beginning to just see how it goes.
Yeah. I heard this song. It said, I'm pure, I'm not perfect.
Wait, say
Yeah.
that.
I'm pure, not perfect. Your intentions are very pure.
Yeah.
You have to be perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing
Yeah. Thanks for having me once
all
again.
your stories and
Yeah.
and having this conversation with us. I think the last thing you said about finding something that propels you to be more kind to yourself, more compassionate towards yourself, not to be so like rigid and harsh and so just so intense about everything. Sometimes you kind of, as much as critical thinking is amazing, obviously,
It
kind
takes
of
a
need
toll
more of
sometimes.
that. It takes a toll.
Yeah.
It takes some toll, and I feel like our spirits need a time to just flow and just be,
Right.
rather than like being in that headspace of like, oh, I got to think about this and what does this
Right.
mean and why and all of that. So I think that's a great
No,
note
exactly.
to end on, just being more compassionate and kind. And I think, I don't know, so many things are changing and evolving, and it becomes a state of like fear. And it's also in those states to kind of unwind and be like, okay, how do I decompress?
Right.
And I think art is great for that,
Yeah.
to just play, literally
Yeah,
just
exactly.
play.
And I think
play
art
around.
school, like art school is fantastic. But
Yeah.
I think in a lot of ways, like we're so critical,
Yes.
especially like with what we're doing. I think freshman
Yeah.
year was like the time to really explore, at least at Parsons, where we were just like
Yeah,
doing
first
any
year.
type of medium.
Foundation
I mean, of
year.
course, we're being graded, which also is a whole thing in its own. But I think, yeah, it takes a
Yeah.
toll. It takes a toll. So
does.
it's sometimes nice to just decompress and not have to think too much and just
Yeah.
make things.
And not have to explain the why. I
Right.
feel like whenever you
There's a lot
make
of whys.
anything, it's like, why'd you use this form, this
Right.
material, this fabric, this sound, this environment? It's why, and
Right.
it's like, you know, sometimes I don't know. You know,
Yeah.
like it was either a found material, or it was like what I was feeling that day. Like, how am I going to explain to you my mood right now? Like,
Right.
so it's nice to
Yep.
take away that why. Yeah, a really good point. And with that, thank you so much for listening, for
Yes.
being here. We're excited for the next episode. Again, thank you so much for coming
Thank
on.
you.
It makes me
Really
so
appreciate
happy.
our first
Yeah.
guest.
First
Let's go down the
guest.
history books.
Wow.
Right.
Put the rim shot sound
Yeah,
on.
right.
Put the rim shot sound. History books. Yeah, no, thanks for having me
Extra.
again. It's been fun.
Oh, I'm glad.
It's an important show.
Yeah, it is. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yay. Okay,
All right.
and we'll see everyone
Peace.
later. Bye. Peace.